am I all right to start, Deputy Clerk?
Yes, you are.
Wonderful. I'd like to welcome everybody to tonight's meeting. Unfortunately, the mayor had some eye surgery, and I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. And I'd like everyone to please join me in a moment of silent reflection, please. Thank you, everyone, and I hope everyone's staying safe out there. Hopefully, we'll see this COVID come to an end sooner than later. It's been a long haul, but please stay safe, and we'll hopefully get through this together. Next up, as we always do, we'll do our traditional land acknowledgement. I'll ask Councillor Main if you'd please read our acknowledgement this evening.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Today is also a special day. Councillor McGinn and I, as many people around the province, are wearing red, and she even has it, murdered or missing Indigenous women. So it's always very important, these land acknowledgements, as we are in an era of reconciliation. So thank you, Deputy Mayor. The town of Midland recognizes it is located on the land which is the traditional and treaty territories of the Shenandoah people, now known as the Chippewa Tri-Council, comprised of Bosley First Nation, Rama First Nation, and the Georgina Island First Nation. The territory is within the Pre-Confederation Treaty 5 and Treaty 16, and included within the Williams Treaties of 1923. The town of Midland recognizes that it is located on land which is the traditional territory of the Wendat and a historic homeland of the Métis, and that our town is home to a large and diverse community of Indigenous peoples. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Main. And I'll now ask if anyone has a declaration of conflict of interest. I see none, but I will be declaring one. It's with regards to conflict on 10.4.2 CSR-21, 2021-29 outdoor patios, as I deal directly or indirectly with a number of the business that will be filing the application. So we don't need, nothing was pulled, so I will choose not to vote on when that item comes forward. So just I filed the paperwork already with our deputy clerk, and I just want to declare that conflict. We did have a bit of paperwork from we had a closed session before our meeting this evening, and moved by Councillor Main and second by Councillor Cunningham that council acknowledge and accept the information provided by the town solicitor at the closed meeting session of council held May 5th, 2021 regarding ongoing litigation and dismantlement. All those in favor? So carried. Thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to that moved by Councillor Gordon, second by Councillor McGinn, that the consent for the regular meeting of council with closed session agenda for May 5th, 2021 be accepted. Any questions or comments with regards to that?
Point of order. Sure. I think it's point of order.
Yes.
I don't believe that Councillor Gordon can be the person to be involved in firsting or firsting or.
Oh, you are correct. Councillor Gordon wasn't at the meeting, so I will change it with your permission to Councillor Prost. Is that fine? Councillor Prost, you fine to move this item? Thank you very much, Councillor McGinn.
You're welcome.
Moved by Councillor Prost, second by Councillor McGinn, that the consent of the regular council with closed session agenda for May 5th, 2021 be approved. All those in favor? So carried. Thank you so much. Moving on, we have moved by Councillor Chesky, second by Councillor Downer, that the agenda and related recommendations contained within the May 5th, 2021 consent agenda as consent items having been considered by council be adopted. Any questions or comments with regards to this item? Councillor Gordon.
Thanks. I just had a question or two about the outdoor patio policy. I know you can't speak to it, Deputy Mayor, but
sure, that's fine.
I read it and I I think it's a great idea, great initiative. I'm fully prepared, of course, to support the staff recommendation on it, and anything we can do to help the downtown bounce back and enjoy the lovely new Main Street. The one question that came up, and there was a little bit of a kerfluffle, if you will, on social media, was some photos about one Eager Beaver, business owner downtown who happily launched their new patio furniture, and the way it was situated with the current bollards, raised the ire of a lot of local residents. Not so much that there was going to be a patio, but it was just more the manner of where the patio was placed and how it seemed to block foot traffic. And to their credit, the business in question posted some video from downtown Barrie that has a very strikingly similar layout for their Main Street, exactly how this would look and work when the bollards are moved and the patios are in place. And I think that did a great job of showing people this is what it's going to look like. They just happened to be the first one, the early bird, if you will, a little bit early according to the policy. And I just wanted to know from a staff perspective if if the way that it's set up right now, I haven't been down to check to see if it's moved since this week, but the way it was pictured, if that is ultimately the way it's going to be, and other similar restaurants and businesses are going to make application, and that the layout will be, that you walk along the street and then you kind of bump out towards the travel part of the road to get around the patios and then back onto the sidewalk and then bump out again. If that is in fact the layout, just so we could share that vision with everybody.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. If I could, I'm going to pass the chair over if Councillor Cunningham would accept. I just don't want to have any type of conversation or even get involved in conversation. Councillor Cunningham, if you would take the chair at this point, and I'll take it back when we're done the conversation with regards to patio. I appreciate the question, Councillor Gordon, and I'm going to mute myself, and I'll allow Councillor Cunningham if you agree.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll do so. Is there a staff response to that question? Anybody who'd like to take that? Jim, you have your hand up. Jim Reichelt.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, we will be reviewing every application separately. There will be some instances where it could push out into the parking area, and the bollards would be moved for that. And there will be dividers and whatnot to ensure traffic knows that that is not a parking area. We have to ensure we have the minimum I think it's 1.5 meter walking space, 6 feet to walk around. That Eager Beaver patio was removed the following day. They were a little ahead of themselves. They still have to go through our engineering review prior to approvals to ensure we meet AODA and ensure the proper walking path and room around our fixtures and tree plantings, which are being done this month. So we won't see any patios probably before the 31st until the plantings are done.
Thank you, Mr. Reichelt. Any follow-up, Councillor Gordon?
No, that's great. I'm glad that things worked out. Initially, if you follow the online crowd, there was a little bit of, as you said, it was a bit of a kerfuffle, but then I think people warmed up to the concept, especially when they posted that video showing what it's going to look like if it, mirrors other municipalities. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for the lockdown to end to the point where we can go down and enjoy a meal and a beer on the patio down there. I'll be one of the first people down there, in the evening, but I will get there. So thank you very much for the update.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I see your hand up, and then Councillor Main.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At the time that the design of the streetscape for the Main Street was being considered, the question of where you place, there was consideration for outdoor patios. The consideration of where you place that patio was basically away out to the curb portion or closer to the building, and it seemed wiser to put it closer to the building because you can just picture somebody with a tray full of food walking up the front door, having to cross a pedestrian way in which some people coming along having a chat, everything goes on the floor. So it was thought prudent, as Barry had done, and as was in the video that I assume that Councillor Gordon's referring to. They kept everything tight to the building and people went out and around. And that's really why you see the bollards there, and that it gives you a flexible streetscape. So it's unfortunate that the organization in question kind of jumped the gun, because it would have been really nice to perhaps have showcased their setup with the bollards moved out, and everybody could see how traffic would flow. So it sounds like from what Councillor Gordon has indicated and Mr. Reicheld that people now get the sense of what's going to happen, and sounds like the planning might come to fruition in a positive way. Thank you.
Thank you for that additional context, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Main.
Thank you. Yeah, that was what I was going to mention. I had a BIA meeting last night. They were very excited about the policy, which is basically formalizing an informal policy, which we've had for several years. So the reason why a lot of licensed patios are building side is because of the AGCO rules. We believe that most all licensed patios are building side, but the policy does allow for the flexibility of having curbside patios. They would just not be able to be licensed. So if you are a business or a restaurant in the downtown, please check out the policy and reach out to Jim Reicheld, who's the point person for the patio bylaw. And we're really excited to roll this out. I think everyone's really excited about King Street. So thank you. And if I may speak to the second item on the consent agenda.
Go ahead.
Thank you. It was just a comment on the condominium exemption rule, and it was just a very general question for staff. There was basically concerns at the onset of the subdivision that we were going to run into this problem by having all these different condominium corporations. The Condominium Act, I guess, is still like a 30-year-old document. It's from '91, and it's kind of complicating here. And I very much appreciate staff trying to uncomplicate and try to alleviate all the issues with condo. It was just a comment to the development team and Mr. Chad John Baptiste, who's attending us, who we always love to see. But perhaps for the later phases, maybe moving away from the condominium typology, just to alleviate some of these planning issues. So I think everyone's excited about Seasons on Little Lake, and the planners are always good about figuring out these types of issues. It's just, you're reading it, it almost is, for a non-planner, it sometimes comes off a little bit nonsensical, and it's very difficult to read at times. So I very much appreciate the report trying to touch on what we're trying to do at Seasons in Little Lake. So more of a comment than a question, but any further information on that would be greatly appreciated for the community, just to alleviate any confusion around the condominium rules and regulations. Thank you.
Mr. Campbell, I guess, would be the person here if you would care to speak to that.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Main. Yes, the Condominium Act and the Planning Act is always a challenge for everyone to understand. The Seasons on the Lake development is going to have a number of condominiums, whether it's one corporation or a number of corporations. I'm unaware what their future plans are. Our goal right now is how can we help them get through the planning process, get the houses built, and get residents moved in. And this report today is part of that process, trying to help this developer move their development ahead and provide homes for our residents. So I can't really get into a discussion on all about condominiums. I don't know if that's what we need to do today. It's just, this is what staff is working through with the developer to help them get their development on board as quickly as possible.
Thank you. That does sound like a 1-hour discussion on a downtown patio to me. Are there any other comments or questions on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, you have heard the motion. We will call the question. All those in favor? And that is carried. And then I can pass this back over to you, Deputy Mayor Ross.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunningham. Greatly appreciated. And that was carried. I'll sign that. So next up, we'll resolve to the Committee of Whole. So moved by Councillor Pro, second by Councillor Main, that Council resolve into the Committee of Whole. All those in favor? Wonderful. So moved. We're in the Committee of Whole. First up, we have a deputation from the Integrity Commissioner, recommendation report, complaint against Councillor McGinn, dated April 26, 2021. I'm not sure if it's Miss Atwood. and Mr. Abrams here today. I'll turn it over to you. It's all yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Mayor, for that introduction. And Jeff is somewhere on your screen. And I will be doing a bit of speaking at the beginning and respond to questions if you have any. At the outset, and I may have missed it, but Councillor McGinn does have a conflict of interest and must make the declaration. So I don't know if I missed it. Perhaps the deputy clerk has already recorded that. Councillor McGinn may certainly participate in the discussion, but may not vote on this matter.
Councillor McGinn?
I'm trying to put my hand up, raise hand.
Yes. Councillor McGinn, yes?
Yes. So I've been through this, so have other people. So I apologize for misunderstanding that I know I can't vote on it. So if I have to say that I have a pecuniary interest because I might be found guilty by my peers and you might choose to financially penalize me, then I can see that as a definite possibility. I just didn't think that it was, because this is something extraordinary. So that's my faux pas and I apologize for that. So right now, I will say I declare a pecuniary interest, and I'll write it out, and I'm hoping that it can be accepted right now. And I know that I can't vote on it. Please excuse me for my error. Sorry for the interruption. And Madam Clerk, Madam Deputy Clerk, is this acceptable for me to verbalize right now that I understand that I may be in a position where it's possible that I have a pecuniary interest, because it is possible I could be financially penalized, and that I ought to have and am now declaring a pecuniary interest.
Yes, it's acceptable. And if Madam Clerk, you could forward the proper paperwork for Councillor McGinn, you have to fill out the paperwork and submit it with our clerk. If you could do that by the end of the week, that'd be fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Please note that Councillor McGinn has declared a conflict with regards to item 13.1, Integrity Commissioner Recommendation Report. Thank you very much, Ms. Atwood.
Thank you. Okay, and I will continue. So this is a complaint. It was a complaint regarding the councillor's conduct interfering with operational and staff matters, impugning staff's competence and professionalism, and attempting to intimidate her partner's manager. It all comes about because of a personal relationship with a member of staff. It is unusual for a member of council to be in a relationship with a member of municipal staff, but it's certainly not unique, particularly in a small town. Even in a large city, it can occur. Councillors must respect the boundaries of their roles and are not to inject themselves into day-to-day operations involving their significant other. In this instance, the councillor continued to pursue the matter well after the events of the day which had occurred. And the events, in our view, were very well managed by staff and did not require that interjection or intervention at all. Councillors occupy a position of privilege and need to recognize the scope of their role. Councillor McGinn was cautioned about this kind of inappropriate conduct last July, when we found she had failed to disclose a conflict of interest where her significant other was concerned. In that July 8, 2020 report, we specifically pointed out to the councillor not to overstep her role by interfering in operational matters involving her partner's workplace. The very next month, on August 6th, she sent a lengthy email string to her partner's new boss on his third day on the job, introducing herself as the employee's partner and once again improperly interfering in operational matters. In January of 2021, her partner wanted to go home to put Voltaren, an over-the-counter analgesic, on his sore neck. As his physical appearance seemed to worsen, his manager insisted he should not drive himself, but should be driven picked up, or an ambulance called, or even to have the counselor called. The counselor involved herself in the incident over the phone in a manner that was completely unwarranted in our view. Nevertheless, management staff accommodated the interference. However, 18 days later, the counselor broadcast an email chastising staff to her partner's manager, copying his director, the lead hand, 2 employees who are union stewards, 2 employees of HR, including the director, and notably, the 1 employee who counselors can always contact, the CAO, was left out of that email string. The continued behavior of the counselor and her insistence that everyone else must accept her involvement, interference, because of her unique circumstances, frankly demonstrates an attitude of entitlement. She shows a blatant disregard for the rules, and even when cautioned, insists that she knows best. She demonstrates a perceived entitlement on the basis of her status as an elected official that is inappropriate and concerning. It is clear that her partner's episode on January 6th was well in hand without her involvement. Even then, her interference that day was tolerated. Staff seemed to roll with the punches. It was her email reprimand 2.5 weeks later to all and sundry that resulted in this complaint. It is clear that the counselor's continuing interference has a real impact on staff. We find all of the allegations in the complaint have been substantiated, and that given this is not the first time the matter has been brought to her attention, a monetary penalty is certainly warranted. And therefore, we've made the recommendation for a 30-day suspension of pay. And we can respond to questions if any.
Thank you very much. We have a motion that I'm going to put on the floor, and then we'll allow for questions. If Councillor McGinn would like to go first, but I'll have the motion reads that as recommended, the recommendation report of the Integrity Commissioner respecting complaints against Councillor McGinn, April 26, 2021, that the remuneration period to Councillor McGinn be suspended for a period of 30 days, and that the recommendation report of the Integrity Commissioner respecting complaints against Councillor McGinn, April 26, 2021 be posted on the town website for public access. I need a mover and a seconder if I could. Moved by Mayor Strathern, second by Councillor Chesky. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Councillor McGinn, would you like to go first? I'll allow everyone 5 minutes, and we'll have one time only, and then we'll call the vote. Thank you. Councillor McGinn?
Okay, so first off, when the last time we were before we had this happen, Councillor Chesky was allowed to speak multiple times. So I should be allowed to respond to my peers and questions they ask and not have a time limit. That just seems that we're not following a standard sort of way of interacting with each other. And then I made a point to think and write and prepare something.
Please, the floor is yours.
The words that were spoken are far harsher than what is actually written, so that has me really shocked. This whole process is emotionally draining for me, and it never should have come to this. And to my peers, I apologize for that. I've been here before and where you are. This process does not help us work together as a team. It separates us. You're in a position of authority right now. You effectively are jury members. You can choose to agree with some or part of the report and vote to cause me and my household financial hardship. Again, nobody should have to feel what we are all experiencing. The last time there was a commissioner report before us, before this council, it was supported that we talk with each other and set up meetings. This never happened. Instead, we went the costly and team damaging route of a commissioner's investigation. I'm upset that it's written that I didn't listen to the strong suggestions. and warnings stemmed from my last time in this position. I avoided the operations center. I used to drive Jamie to work or meet him for lunch, and this came to a halt. I stopped asking in council about overdue grievances, how people were rehired or were not, items in arbitration and how they were going, and even the retendering process. I stopped interacting. The time between my last complaint and this one is what matters. I was even careful during budget to not ask questions regarding training or new purchases. I was mindful and careful. On Friday, January 8th, I was involved via telephone in a traumatic event. It's not the same degree as what Jamie went through. Ms. Yorkin told me in an email that my comments were going to be added to the incident report for the crisis. During the investigation, I said I wanted to read it. After I received the final report, I included HR in an email asking to read this incident report. The Integrity Commissioner responded on their behalf. I thought because I was named, I could read it. That's not the case. As a councillor, I cannot. I am referenced in one sentence, and not by my name, but by a title. I was told it says, the spouse requested 911 be called. This is true. I called Jamie as his partner. I hadn't heard from him for a while and knew he was experiencing pain. Jamie always answers on speakerphone because he is deaf in one ear. He didn't put me on speakerphone. It is his default answer setting. I did request 911 be called. The incident report supports I was viewed as his partner, not as a councillor. I did not insert myself as a councillor. I did not begin giving instruction to staff. I asked for 911 to be called. Then I spoke to my partner and I guided. You guys have no idea how hard it is to think that your partner at that time might be having a stroke, okay? I guided him to a safe prone position and calmed him and spoke the words of help being on the way and that he was safe. That's how I spoke to him. I doubt any of my peers, any of you, speak to your partners as a councillor when you call them. I'm upset that much later, after the investigation, it is written that the operation managers felt he had to acquiesce to the demands of me as a councillor, not a spouse anymore. I'm also upset that it took me asking for 911 to be called. Jamie has a recording from before I called him. 8.5 minutes is a long time for a person who is showing signs of a stroke. I will not apologize for wanting 911 to be called. In requesting this call, I did nothing wrong. I feared a stroke, and calling 911 is the best action. The Heart and Stroke Foundation has clear instructions, as does the St. John's Ambulance Training Handbook, on what to do if the signs of stroke are present. And in the report that you, my peers, have, it is supported that they saw that he was shaking, that he had labored breathing, that he had weakness, and they knew he had sudden and acute pain in his neck. That's your spine. Those are the signs of a stroke. He did have a new diagnosis of spinal stenosis. This condition can be serious and cause long-term damage and presents with stroke-like symptoms. The next 2.5 weeks were rough. They were. I cared for him as best I could based on what his medical team said he needed and what I could do. And our lives revolved around his healing, care, pain management, and treatment. And, you know, it took me a bit to realize that I too had gone through the event, that I had my own trauma response, that I had fears, worries, and concerns. What if he had been driven home, as was an option offered by staff, and he was not taking treatments and medications the ER doctor told him? What if he had been driven home and it got worse? What if he had spasms coming down the stairs and fell? If he had been driven home by a staff member and had a spasm while in the car and an accident happened, the corporation would have been liable and people could have been injured. If he fell after being driven home, again, we could have been liable. The Good Samaritan principle would not cover us because 911 was an option. And the transportation was not to get medical care when 911 was an option. It doesn't cover a ride home in these scenarios. This is why we call 911. We are not doctors. It did not say his manager had a bias. Most people want for the presentation of medical distress to be something not horrid and life-threatening, and this is normal. I said I supported more first aid training and asked, what if a stranger walked in off the street? Would there be a different response? Jamie does have modifications for work duties. Just because his boss has 25 years in an industry doesn't mean he has provided loads of first aid, nor is he a doctor. This doesn't overtly qualify him or any other person over another. I'm not trying to devalue 25 years in an industry. The point I'm trying to make is that it doesn't mean that you have more experience than anybody else. I would hope he hasn't had this experience or needed to provide first aid. I was a very distressed woman who was scared this could happen to another person and another partner. I was concerned for people and the corporation. I wanted a discussion and for us adults to see what we could do better and how we as people involved with the event could learn from this and learn about other people's responses. I did email people present and people in positions of care and authority. I even preempted my email with saying it was from my perspective. I wanted to share my truth, be understood, and seek better outcomes. No partner should ever have to ask for 911 to be called when others are present. This is my reality based on what I had to do and my comprehension of first aid. The truth I'm speaking is mine, and it's not intended now and was not then to threaten anyone. So now I, his partner at the time, is the one who was under attack for being worried, for sharing concerns and fears, and is now being threatened with a loss of the income again. I asked if there was decompression meetings, if others were okay. I thanked people for being present and for telling me his breathing regulated once he was in the prone position. I did write from the first-hand responders book and use their language. My point was to share that I knew how to respond. I didn't say you were incompetent. I said that a competent responder was needed and shared from the St. John's ambulance book what the steps were when a possible stroke was in presentation. I was reiterating my understanding and sharing my reason for wanting 911 called. A competent responder is the language of first aiders. I'm sorry if it was seen as an attack or judgment of others. I was just sharing how and why I responded as swiftly as I did. I take healthcare and first aid steps very seriously. My email was sent when I did not know yet that nobody intended on calling 911. I am
Councillor, I'll ask you to wrap up, please. I'll give you one more minute if you could, please.
I'm thankful Jamie went to the ER and was diagnosed, and I'm proud of my role. It is only after my email and then the investigation began that I started to be called an interfering counselor. I am not just a counselor. I cannot be the spouse at one time. It can't be just one, and when it is fitting for others, change it. You called me his spouse in the incident report and then changed it to only counselor. I fail to see how my asking for 911 to be called is intimidating or interfering. I mean, the commissioner wrote, it could be seen that I would be distressed. And I'm telling you, I most certainly was. I didn't interject as a counselor in the scene. I didn't call Jamie as my counselor. The incident report supports that. I feel like others may have reevaluated how they responded. And instead of learning to navigate a crisis differently, there's a deflection. I feel like my role is being used to shift focus from what was done, was not done, what wasn't going to be done. I don't think this is where the focus should be. The investigation process brought quite a bit to light. So what do we do as people, counselors? What do we do as humans now? How do I be a good healthcare advocate? How do I respond if another crisis occurs? How do we as peers move forward and see the sincerity in my action and concerns and heal from misunderstood language? What do each of us do when presented with concerns instead of retaliating with an investigation? What do each of us involved take away from this? I will always dial 911. I will always ask for it to be dialed. I will have my own trauma response. I will speak with my therapist, which is quite a regular event. I will seek to understand. And I will write. I'm trying to shorten this and suggest introspection and learning. I won't hide my emotions if I was involved and emotionally impacted. I can write separate emails if I want to thank people who are not a director or CAO and asked the CAO to forward it on my behalf. And here's something interesting. So when I learned I had accidentally omitted the CAO and I explained how it happened, I apologized. I explained I was using my phone and I can't just write DD. On this computer, if I write DD, it comes up David Deneau, CAO. On my phone, it doesn't. I already said I'm sorry and I fixed the issue on my phone. I don't see it included in the report. That I apologized immediately and did the, oh my goodness, this can't happen again. I am hurt that it isn't included, and I feel like it wasn't validated that it wasn't included. I have another question too.
Okay, if we could maybe, if you could end with a question. I've let you go on for well over 10 minutes, and if you have one question, I'll allow it, and then I'm going to turn over to other council members who also have questions. If you want to bring your question forward, please. Is this directed to principals integrity?
No, I almost at the end of what I wrote, because last time I rambled and I wanted to try to be, I just wanted to try to be focused. I wasn't trying to cause anybody harm. I wasn't, it was first recognized that I called my spouse. That's what I did. I called my spouse. I didn't give directions to staff. I asked for 911 to be called. And for anybody watching, don't ever worry about asking for 911 to be called. And now I'm the one who is being reprimanded and attacked. And this is, I mean, that was a
question.
You know what?
You have a question?
I guess I'm going to have to word it this way. So I am going to implore, I'm asking you to see my intentions were sincere. Can you? And recognize that Jamie and I were living together at the time and he was my partner. Can you recognize I was terrified? Can you recognize I was traumatized by the events? Can you see these are strong words and I don't use them lightly? Can you please recognize I am now a single mom? I'm now a single income household. I now live without Jamie. I had to revisit this, and I don't think it should have had to have come before us. I am also, can you also please recognize, I am the only council member ever financially penalized, and I am now facing it again. What a lot of people don't know is I got laid off. My budget is already dangerously tight. I feel I've already suffered a lot the past while, and this process has cost me sleep.
Okay.
And it definitely has affected my emotional well-being. Can you all recognize that I had no malicious intent?
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Any other councillors have a question or comment with regards to this report? Councillor Gordon.
Thank you.
I'll ask you to please keep to 5 minutes to respect the wishes of this committee.
Oh, that's fine. I'm usually long-winded, but I won't be tonight.
Thank you.
Councillor McGinn, I mean, I can share with you that I've had, I'm sure you can all remember, the stay in your lane, same advice recently. And, it's a lesson where you need to learn then how to manage those challenges about staying in your lane and find other methods and means that are available to you so that you don't come in conflict. Those are, that's advice I've taken to heart, and I continue to have issues where I could very easily stray out of my lane. And I have emailed back and forth with Mr. Deneau constantly, looking for ways to try and navigate what it is I'm trying to do and what I think is important. And it is a challenge. It's easier if you just don't, like if you just show up and come to a meeting and look at the staff reports and vote or don't, and that is a lot easier to just not participate like that. But in this particular case, it's a little different because it's a personal connection with somebody. So my question, I guess, to you is, and I have a question for Principals Integrity, is based on what you've read in this report and what you've heard from Principals Integrity tonight, if next week or next month or next year, similar circumstances presented themselves to you, would you, now knowing what you're now hearing, would you do anything differently?
Yes. If I was in a partnering situation with somebody who worked for the town and I called them and they answered and it was exactly the same, there is one thing I wouldn't change. If they were presenting with a stroke or a heart, I would ask for 911 to be called. I would. I said that when I wrote. But the thing I would do differently is that, well, I'd probably check in with my therapist again more often. And if I wanted to ask any questions or talk about it, I would only copy the CAO, the mayor. I would actually only copy the CAO and the mayor. I don't think I would include human resources. I would just send it to them so that they would say to me, where does it go? And then I could be, emotional and honest in that. And if they needed to, they could say, okay, here's the key points of it. I have to trust that. I would have to trust the CAO and Mr. Mayor. So that I would definitely do differently. If I wanted to thank people, then I would send it to the CAO and say, how do I go about letting people know that I appreciated, specific to the Jamie scenario, I did receive a call afterwards where I was told, yeah, you know what, when he lied down, like his breathing regulated and the way you spoke to him helped him relax, that I was able to calm him before. It's just something I'm really good at. So I wanted to thank people for doing that, but that I can't just do it in one mass email, that I have to send it to the CAO. And if it's appropriate, the CAO can forward it on my behalf, that there's a different procedure. So I wouldn't include as many people. I didn't mean any harm by it. I didn't mean any harm by my questions. I was hoping it would be and I was emotionally distraught.
Thank
And
you,
I was going through a lot. So yes, I would definitely go about it differently.
All right, and a quick
And
question.
you had one final
Thank
question, Councillor Gordon?
Thank you. If I could, to principals. I think it's a two-pronged one. Is it the phone call that she participated in and gave these directions? Is that the primary reason for the finding of guilt, or was it the email and the contents of the email and the string of people, or was it some culmination there? But I'm really just trying to see which one really caused you more to make this finding. I think I know, but I wouldn't mind hearing that. And my last part, I may as well throw it off to you. Is this sanction, the last sanction was for 2 weeks pay, as I recall, somewhere around that.
It was for 7 days last time.
Was it 7 days? I thought it was 2
No,
weeks.
it was 30 days.
Oh,
And if it's 30 days again,
apologize.
I can't pay my rent.
Oh,
Apologize.
sorry, the last one was a month. I'm sorry, I don't remember. I didn't look it up. I was just wondering, I thought it was like 2 weeks or something like that. Because I remember arguing for 1 day, right? But
yeah,
I guess what I was trying to ask is if this was a larger penalty than last time, had the last one, been, if you'd recommended a day or something, would this have been, is this one so serious that you've gone for 30 days because of the seriousness, or is it because it's, the principles of deterrence, you're trying to make it a little more harsh every time? I'm just trying to understand how we got to 30 days, because it is, quite a bit of money for her. I mean, I didn't expect her to disclose what she did tonight, but again, I don't take issue with your findings. I just wanted to know which one of those two really caused the most problems for you and really how you got to the 30 days.
Ms. Atwood?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and thank you for that question, Councillor Gordon. I will answer it this way. Firstly, the complaint arose because of the email that was sent to a long list of recipients 18 days after the event. So it had, the complaint was not about the call, the councillor taking charge of the situation. That certainly came out in the course of the investigation, but certainly the complaint was brought to our attention as a direct result of that lengthy email that really came 2.5 weeks after the event and had nothing to do with, it wasn't a moment of responding to an event. It was an email that was sent 2.5 weeks later to the partner's manager and a number of other individuals named on that. And it's not about, I would add, it's not about including the CAO. I mean, really, the member of council should have been addressing the matter to the CAO, not just include the CAO. But in any event, it didn't include the CAO. It went to a long list of recipients, not the CAO. The explanation that the councillors provided, and we have heard of this extensively, it's dramatic, but it's incorrect. There wasn't a crisis occurring, and the issue was well in hand. Yes, there is a recording. We've listened to the recording. We have a copy of that recording. It certainly corroborates our understanding that events were being managed without the interference of the councillor. With respect to our recommendation, it has more to do with the fact that from our perspective, there are a few cardinal rules for elected officials of municipal councils to respect. And certainly one of them is to stay in your lane and not to get into the operational issues, and particularly where in this particular instance, it's repeat behavior. From the moment we began looking at it, we were aware that within 4 weeks of our previous report cautioning the councillor, she was introducing herself to her partner's new boss as the partner. I'm a councillor, he's my partner, and by the way, here are a number of things I want to bring to your attention. They're operational issues. So it is a concern to us. It is certainly violating a cardinal rule of elected officials. In a sense, it's not progressive discipline because the first complaint, which was a conflict of interest complaint, resulted in our recommendation of a 30-day suspension of pay, which from our perspective, it's a serious recommendation, but it's not reflecting the most egregious, if you will. We can recommend up to 90-day suspension of pay. In fact, there are integrity commissioners who will make recommendations and treat each allegation as a separate complaint. So we are treating this as it's a single complaint with a number of allegations. We find them substantiated. We're not treating it as progressive discipline. We're not saying escalate it from 30 days. We're saying 30 days. It's a significant transgression. It ought to be recognized as such because there is a serious impact on staff. So I hope that helps.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Mayor Strathern?
Thank you very, very much, Deputy Mayor. I would like to just reinforce what the Integrity Commissioner said. This is basically 18 days later. There is an email addressed to a lot of people, whether they are within the town, within the town organization, the union. I mean, everybody except Mr. Deneau. So even if somehow you forgot, the reality is that throughout this piece, Councillor McGinn is speaking as ostensibly as the spouse, but also suggesting that the people who are tasked with ensuring that health and safety and all the other things that the town has gone to great lengths in the form of policy to make sure that people observe and training and so on, she's calling it all into question. And at the end of it all, she turns around and at the very bottom, and I'm looking at the email right now on my other screen, it's regards Carol McGinn, Councillor Carol McGinn, the town of Midland. That in itself says to me, if I were an employee, I've got a councillor on my back, look out. People are going to react that way because a councillor has a lot of weight in the community. People talk to me, they don't say, hey, Stu, they say, your worship. because that's what the office holds. I don't necessarily always feel comfortable with it. When I'm in an informal situation, I'd rather be known as Stu, but ultimately I am elected to be the mayor. Councillor McGinn is elected to be a councillor. And with that comes responsibilities. And I have to tell you that 2.5 years into, or almost 2.5 years into this term, I keep hearing, well, I don't really know what the process is. Well, I'm sorry, but you need to know what the process is by the time you get to 2.5 years. And if you don't know, ask. So with respect to engaging with people at the operations center, on behalf of somebody who you're connected to, and by the way, it's unclear to me just exactly when, because the last judgment was rendered on the 17th of, or actually prior to the 17th of July, 2020. And here we are in the January of 2021. And on the one hand, he's not my spouse, but now he is my spouse. Which is it? So people are conflicted here. It's which is it really?
Don't go that route.
Which is really, you need to be clear in who and what you are elected to be and take responsibility for it. So frankly, I personally think that the Integrity Commissioner is probably being a bit light in this. As far as compensation goes, understand the consequences of where you are. And I'll say no more, but thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Worship. Councillor Chesky?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have to say to Councillor McGinn, this is an extremely tough place to be. I was in the seat once too, and weeks of anxiety and lost sleep, and it's extremely hard time. And Councillor McGinn, I hope tonight you sleep better, no matter how this all goes. You know, this will be a load off your shoulders, and also to the staff members that were involved, and especially our new director. These are crazy times. The unrest is unreal, you know, across the world right now, and it's wild times. And you know, to all the employees that were involved, you know, this is not nice for any of us, and none of us councillors want to sit up here and do this. I hope if there is, I'm sorry to hear about your financial situation right now, and I hope if there is some sort of financial burden caused by this, hopefully there can be some creative ways to work with. Within my workplace, sometimes we'll span things out over multiple pays so that it's easier to pallet for similar reasons, so that you can, you know, keep your job and pay your bills and your livelihood, and but still, you know, have the punishment passed forward. So I won't say anymore. It's been beat to death. You know, sometimes you can do the wrong thing with the best of intentions, and I'm a very emotional person myself, and I find myself in that situation quite often. So I'm compassionate and empathetic of your position, and I don't envy anybody who's sitting up here, but I will be supporting the recommendation today.
Thank you, Councillor Chesky. Any other questions or comments? If I could, I'd like to add one thing. Oh, sorry, I'll come back to Councillor Gordon in a second. I just want to add one thing. I could live with the reaction at the time of the incident. I really could. I get it. Somebody's in peril, and you think you're trying to do the right thing, but to send an email from the town email dated from Councillor Carol McGinn, Town of Midland, 18 days later, I can't accept it. I cannot. I've read somewhere on a Facebook, there should be no tolerance. There should be zero tolerance for workplace harassment. And I could not agree with that more. So I will be supporting this also. Any other questions or comments with regards to this item? Councillor Prost?
Councillor McGinn, after listening to you, I feel conflicted with the report. I do agree with Deputy Mayor that the email came long after, you know, those immediate emotions when things were happening. I do wonder if this could have been dealt with without the IC. I don't know, maybe it's something we could try to do in the future a little bit when it's possible. And I guess I do have a question. It would be, could this be reduced at all? Can the penalty be reduced at all?
Ms. Atwood?
Through the deputy mayor, we simply make the recommendation. Council has the role to impose the penalty, but we do make the recommendation having considered carefully the circumstances. So we would suggest that the recommendation, in our view, lands the penalty in the right place, but it's certainly within council's discretion to vary that.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments with regards to this item? We've all had a chance. Councillor Cunningham?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Reiterating a few things that, yes, I think we can agree that in an urgent situation in the date of the event, we can make allowances, right? But it is unreasonable to believe that Councillor McGinn should not be capable of going to the CAO with a question about staff, with a recommendation about staff. She was not hired as an advocate for health in the town of Midland. She is a councillor. And I have a huge amount of compassion for her, but my compassion for one person should not overshadow my compassion for our staff and my desire to create a culture where we attract quality people who feel respected and supported in their role. The work environment is far more important, that this change and this stop, that I also support the recommendations from Principals Integrity. Thank you.
Sorry, any questions or comments? I see your card, but I'm going to call the vote. Everyone's had the opportunity to discuss. I will ask for a recorded vote. Madam Clerk?
Sorry, Deputy Mayor Ross, it was just something that Councillor Chesky brought up. I just wanted to quickly discuss before we call this vote, because it's really about the time to pay. It's very, very common in courts where people are given a monetary sanction that one of the first thing that's asked is, does the person need time to pay? And that's something I'd never even considered, but Councillor Chesky brought it up. But perhaps there's a way to try and reduce this pain by basically advising staff that we would like this penalty to be, dished out in equal installments over 6 or 8 months or something like that, and not just 30 days gone right now. She's still paying it. It's just going to take time and maybe hopefully not cause her extra financial hardship. Does that take a direction from council, or is that something that we can just count on, that we've talked about, assuming we agree that staff will do? So justice will be done, but we're also having some compassion here.
Madam Clerk, Deputy Clerk, I'm not sure what the process would be to get that on the floor, but the recommendation is 30 days. I'm not sure how the 30 days is calculated, if that's something we even need to do, but maybe Mr. CEO, or I'm not sure who to ask at this point.
Deputy Mayor, if that's the will of council, we'll certainly take it back. I know it was something that we were able to accommodate in the previous instance. Going into another fiscal might be a bit challenging, but we will, again, if directed by council, do whatever we can to make this as easy as possible.
Wonderful. Mayor Strathern, final remark.
Point of order.
I would just like to suggest that the last time there was a ruling on this, it was taken into consideration ability to pay. And frankly, the organization accommodated that. Here we are again, basically a like issue, and we're being asked to consider ability to pay. And at the risk of looking like Simon Legree or somebody like that, I would suggest to you that we can do that if council wishes. But I would suggest to you that I wouldn't stretch it out. That there's a reason for a monetary penalty. There's a reason that the Integrity Commissioner has put that forward. And frankly, that the circumstances of the individual have changed. The individual councillor has changed, no doubt about that. But I would I personally feel like once burned, twice shy. So I would ask you to consider carefully how you address that issue, because the Integrity Commissioner has laid out, I think, a case for the penalty, and frankly, the penalty needs to be applied in a way that, well, it's a penalty and not just accommodating an individual because, well, their circumstances have changed. I get that. And I don't want to put somebody in a very bad place, but I don't think you want to take away the notion that there's a penalty to be paid here in a way that basically says it's a penalty.
Thank you.
Or
Thank you, Your
behavior.
Worship. Thank you, Your
Point
Worship.
of order. I'm calling a point of order.
Yes,
Based on past practices and precedents that is set from other people who were in this situation, they were allowed to interact and they were allowed to speak more than you are permitting me to speak. And I would like to speak to something that has uniformly come up from all of my peers.
I will give you 2 minutes to respond, and I will ask you to keep it to 2 minutes to respect council and my wishes and the chair's wishes. I will give you 2 minutes. Madam Councillor McGinn.
So something that has come up that I've heard repeatedly from my peers is that it took 18 days and that seems unreasonable. I was also going through a crisis. I was also going through the care and the trauma. It was a crisis. We don't get to decide how a person responds. I was afraid he was having a stroke. I was the one who was with him, helping him with his care, his management, and his pain management. Please stop shaking your head, Mr. Mayor. I feel that you're not validating my feelings and my emotions.
Point of order, please. Please, Councillor McGinn, stick to the fact. Do you have anything else to add?
So I am imploring you to understand that I was going through something too, and I had no malicious intent. We all uptake things differently. We all deal with situations differently and in different times and in different manners. So what I have learned is that, and I've said this to you all, I will only direct it to the CAO. I've said what I will do differently. And to suggest that it has to be a monetary and that it has to financially impact me greatly now, this whole process is quite a lot. Yeah, I'm laid off. Yes, this is,
Right.
I mean,
Thank you. If you could wrap it up.
yes. Please,
Thank you.
you guys may have partners who help you. I don't. And we all campaigned on saying that we would support one another and
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn.
Mayor.
Appreciate it. Now we've heard the recommendations. We've asked for a recorded vote. And Madam Clerk, I'll have you read the roll for the recorded vote, please.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ross. Council, you've heard the motion. When I call your name, please answer yes or no. Mayor Strathern?
Yes.
Councillor Chesky?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Ross?
In favor.
Councillor Prost?
Yes.
Councillor Cunningham?
Yes.
Councillor Downer?
Yes.
Councillor Main?
In favor.
And Councillor Gordon?
Yes, but I'd like to see time to pay.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Yes.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And thank you very much to the Principal Integrity for joining us this evening. Hope we don't see you soon, but appreciate your time and effort. Thank you. Next up on the agenda, we have the COVID update from our CAO.
I'm requesting a bio break. Actually, it's an emotional break.
Sure. If everyone's okay, we'll reconvene at 8:10. Is that fine with everybody? All right, we'll take a 6-minute break. We'll carry at 8:10. Thank you.
Of COVID update, I'll give you some of the latest stats for Simcoe Muskoka, which provide I think some optimism, although it is continuing to be a very serious situation. So there's been a little over almost 11,000 cases, confirmed COVID cases in Simcoe Muskoka since COVID first hit over a year ago. 186 new cases so far this week in Simcoe Muskoka. The week prior was 500 54 cases, and the week prior to that was 637 cases. So you can see that's trending down. So that's a good sign, but obviously if you're one of those cases, it's not a good thing. In the month of April, 25 deaths in Simcoe, Muskoka. That was double the amount from March. So April, obviously there was, the terrible incidents, and obviously certainly critical in those cases. So far this month, there have been 3 deaths. So very unfortunate situation from that perspective. About 222,300 doses of vaccine have been administered in Simcoe, Muskoka. That's 206,250 individual residents in Simcoe, Muskoka. That represents about 33% of the population. So about 33% of the entire population in Simcoe, Muskoka have received some form of vaccination. Young adults have had the highest rate of infection since February of this year, and that's in the 18 to 34-year range. So that again speaks to what I think we were all aware of, is this is hitting the younger demographic certainly more than it has in the past. This new variant is hitting them hard, and it's keeping them in the ICU ward, certainly more than we've seen in the past. The ventilator bed occupancy rate in Simcoe, Muskoka is at 96.3%. That's very high, obviously. They're trying to keep it around 60%, so you can see how the ICU capacity there is at a vulnerable stage. So again, one of the reasons why you want to be very cognizant of the restrictions that are in place. So that's kind of the current situation with what's going on in Simcoe, Muskoka. In Midland, Penetanguishene, Tay, and Tiny, there have been about almost 600 cases in total across the 4 areas. All of us are over 100 cases year to date. Midland's approaching 200 cases. We're at about 191. Across those 4 municipalities, there are 2 people currently hospitalized. So again, it is hitting close to home. In terms of some of the impacts we're also seeing with COVID, just want to give a bit of shout out to our planning, building, and bylaw group. We're seeing volumes, in terms of the activity in the community with people, I guess, having some time in a very hot residential market, a tremendous amount of volume in those services. So we certainly tried to let all the residents know to be patient with the process. We're getting through it as quickly as possible. And certainly on the planning side, we're anxious to hopefully welcome some new staff on board. So that will be a welcome respite to some of our staff who've been working extremely hard on that front. The county, if you hadn't seen the news from the county, we'll make sure we share that, but they've extended waste facility hours, going to 6 days on some of those facilities. And I think the one in North Simcoe is extending this weekend, I believe, to 6 days. So it'll be open on Saturdays. So again, that's the county recognizing people are quite active and want access to these facilities. So, certainly thanks to the county for doing that. There's a long list, and I'd certainly encourage people to go to the Simcoe Muskoka Health Unit website. There's a long list of eligibility on vaccination that is changing, and it's changing fairly rapidly. There's a tremendous amount of vaccine that's coming into the system. A lot of it is, there's a good amount coming to Simcoe, and there's an expanding list of eligibility that people should make sure they check upon. So go to that website. I could read it off, but it's almost 3 pages of eligibility. Go to the website, check to see if you're eligible, and certainly if you want to make that decision to get vaccinated, go through the process, and hopefully you can use one of our facilities. It's a really well run.
Sorry, Mr. Deneau, what's the website again? Just so I'm not sure if everyone got that out there.
SMDHU, so the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit. Go to their website. If you just search on SMDHU, it'll point you. You go to the COVID section, and then you go to vaccinations. It'll tell you everything you want to know.
Thank you, sir.
The last thing I'll mention is we're welcoming a number of summer students to the town. We had an orientation session with them this week, so thanks again to our HR team who did a great job of making sure that was done safely, but introduce them to the protocols they need to make sure they understand and getting them familiar with how the work environment is working. But it will be great to have those 14 students joining us, and we did receive some funding from the federal government to help pay for some of that. So that was great to hear. The last bit of news that I'll share with you, and I think you did see this as well, is, and this is certainly a credit to our residents, our businesses, our staff and council, is that we were ranked by Maclean's magazine as one of the top 100 places to live in Canada. And that's certainly our previous ranking 2 years ago, that's done every 2 years, was 247. So certainly, when you're in that top quartile, that's something to be proud of. I think we all know this is a special place. I think other people are starting to understand that. You're certainly seeing it in the real estate market, but we want to make sure this is a place for everybody. So all those strategic priorities that this council is working on to make sure it's affordable, it's a place that people can come with their families, it's a place where business can establish themselves. Just want to make sure that we recognize council and our residents and our businesses and our staff for being recognized by the magazine for that. So thank you. And I'll conclude with that remark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deneau. And it's very pleased to see that myself. 98 out of 98th best community, and there's only 2 other communities in Simcoe County, Collingwood and New Tecumseh, that also made the top 100. So we should be very proud. What a jump. I see Councillor Gordon had a question with regards to the update, and anybody else has one, please hold your card up. I'll add you to the list.
Well, not so much a question, but it's part of the update. I mean, we've all seen the ongoing civil unrest as people, grow tiresome and rebellious of lockdown after lockdown and things you can't do and stuff that doesn't make sense. But what we've found in our own little community is we've been having for at least 2 weekends these freedom rallies, if you will, downtown. Now, they're small, not well attended, not like we see in Barrie and other big centers, but the sentiment is the same. And I just want to reiterate in a public forum what I do on public forums on social media, that I do fully support people's rights to protest anything they feel is an injustice in this world. We have all kinds of civil liberties to protect that right. But where I can't support, and what I continue to hope that the town keeps this stance up as well, is that people are free to protest, but you need to do it safely and abide by the public health orders. They're not suggestions or guidelines or orders, they're laws, they're provincial laws in this case. And you need to wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart. So, you're technically not even supposed to gather in large groups, which is, that's breaching an order as well. But if you are going to do that, then at least for heaven's sake, wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart. To sit there and try and absolutely deny that this thing is even a thing and that people haven't died and aren't laying in respirators and filling our hospitals and taxing our systems, and it drives me nuts. And I mean, I don't engage with every kook that tries to convince me that the world is flat or that gravity doesn't exist. But that's almost what it feels like when you listen to some of our residents trying to argue the case about, COVID not being real and not being a thing. We should just open up. So I'm hoping that, I have seen the police down there. I'm hoping, and I know that some people have been charged. As much as I don't wish that on our residents, please don't bring this on yourself. You don't want to believe in this, fine, but don't incite other people to come down maskless and gather and pretend like this isn't happening. It hasn't been happening for a year, and expect no response from our town or our police or bylaw, because that's not a position I can support. I'm sure others on council are the same, but I just wanted to make sure I unequivocally said it. For those people that, say they're not going to vote for me again because this is my stance, well, don't care. This is my stance and who I am. I don't sell out my soul for a few votes. So do what you want, but don't gather without a mask, without public, social distancing and physical distancing, and don't try and argue people in our community that are living through this hell, that this is fake and that it's a pandemic and that we should just open up everything and pretend it's not happening. And please get a vaccine. Thank you. There endeth my rant.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gordon. Well said. I support every word, and I hope the rest of us do also. Councillor Main, and then I'll go to the Mayor Strathern.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I think the other thing is this is a very exciting time for people anxiously waiting, getting vaccines. Just a reminder, the vaccine does not make you invincible. There already is data that I think it was 1.3% of some of the new cases were already people that had been vaccinated with their first dose. Obviously, they're not going to be as develop as severe symptoms. So, but just make that in mind that the vaccine isn't a cure-all, and so be very mindful of that and still continue to adhere to all of the provisions even after being vaccinated until we're all vaccinated and we get down to zero. Just a quick question for Mr. Deneau. As we're nearing the end of the stay-at-home order, which may or may not be extended, I'm guessing we're going back into the color-coded system, or will there be a new framework that we will be entering as we exit the stay-at-home order? Thank you.
Mr. Deneau?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Deputy Mayor. That's a great question, Councillor Main. We'll see. I think there has been some talk that perhaps there will be a new framework that may be revealed. These things tend to drop on a Friday afternoon for some reason, which is unfortunate sometimes, but we've been doing this for a year, so we'll adapt to whatever is done. But there's a lot of focus, I think, on what's going to be announced. I think obviously the May 2-4 long weekend is a really critical period that some decisions are going to have to be made for. I think it's May 20th when the shutdown order, I think that's the date. So certainly the week prior to that, I think we'll get a sense of what it will be. But again, this could happen at the last minute. The numbers seem to suggest that things are going fairly well, but we're also, I think, also watching Alberta as an example where things got out of hand because they didn't have the right measures in place long enough. So I think all of that's going into the calculation. So we will see, I think, is all we can say.
Well, thank you so much.
Your Worship?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd just like to let people know that, as Councillor Gordon said, there are not many people, fortunately, showing up to these events on the waterfront. We're pushing 8,000 deaths in the province. I can't remember how many people who have been infected, and ignoring public health orders is not advisable. Anybody participating is looking at a $750 fine. Those organizing looking at anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 fine. We are at a stage now, we are a year into this, and if you education and warning, we've been doing it for a year. If you haven't learned by now that this is real and the numbers are supporting that, then the police are going to deal with you in a slightly different way than what you might have been accustomed to. I'd also like to say that we are looking at least 2 million doses, according to the Prime Minister, 2 million doses a week coming into the country from here on in. And that the Chief Medical Officer of Health for Canada, Public Health Canada, has reiterated that any vaccine is going to put you in a category where your risk of a clot is much less than if you got COVID. So the advice of the Chief Medical Officer of Health is whatever vaccine is offered, you should take it. And I have to say, it sounds like good advice, and you need look no further than where the US was back about 3 months ago, or I don't think we'll ever get to the point where India is today, but please, please, please go out, get vaccinated. And as the number of people vaccinated increases, the likelihood of the lockdown being ended increases significantly. And 2 weeks can make a heck of a difference. So we've opened up the province has opened up how many people can be vaccinated and what age groups. They're dealing with the hot spots, and the government of Canada stepped in to assist. Government of Newfoundland has stepped in to assist, and we're grateful for that. And frankly, the residents of Simcoe North or North Simcoe have shown discipline, have shown that they can wear a mask, wash their hands, and keep the numbers down. And for that, I personally am thankful. I feel much safer being in North Simcoe than, say, traveling down to get some surgery on my eye in Vaughan. So thanks to the residents of North Simcoe. Get vaccinated, and hopefully we'll see the Premier lift that order in time for the May 2-4 weekend.
Thank you, Worship. Any other questions or comments? I'm happy to say that I received a AstraZeneca vaccine 2 weeks ago. Feel great. I encourage anybody, as the mayor said, if my doctor said any vaccines offered is better than the alternative. So I was happy to take it and felt fine. And just if it does help to put anybody's mind at ease, but please take any vaccine available, and hopefully we can get through this together. Next up, we have notice of motion. Any notice of motion from council this evening? I see none. Any announcements, general announcements this evening? I'll go with John Main.
Thank you. This is a municipal matter. The Affordable Housing Task Force launched the Engaging Midland website subpage of the affordable housing. We're already getting lots of feedback from people, so please take a look at that and please engage with us and let us know how housing affects you. What's your thoughts on how the town can address it? We have lots of resources and reference documents, so if you want to familiarize yourself with some of the stuff that we've been reading up on and some of the thoughts that we have about going forward. Housing, it looks like even the news media is talking about it quite frequently. And so it's a really important issue for our community. And so feedback from the community is so valuable for this very important initiative. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Councillor McGinn.
I think this is the only place where I can actually speak to anything.
Apologize, Councillor McGinn. We cannot hear you.
Really? Okay.
Oh, now we can.
Not better. I'll use my
There you
mom.
go. Yeah.
I guess I'm just going to let everybody know that I'm going to email the CAO and only the CAO and hope that he's going to send it to the right people, that I need clarification on whether I'm going to have an immediate 30-day suspension, because I will have to tell creditors that, I'm not going to be able to pay my rent. So I wanted everybody to know that, because I don't know. And I'm actually going to beg and implore for understanding, because the process was different than the last time. And every single process that we go through with each other seems to not follow like a standard procedure. And then the other thing that I wanted to speak to was that I'm hoping that everybody can put their love and their care and their compassion and their thoughts into this. Please have it on the forefront of your mind. Please, whenever you see a red dress hanging outside, give your thoughts and your energy. And please, regardless of whatever creed, religion, history, whoever it is that you're involved in, please do honor and respect that that the red dress means something. It means something to a great deal of people in our region. And as humans, not because we're counselors, but as humans for our neighbors, that this is something that is important to a great deal of people that I love and that I care about. I will share that actually I got this from my wifey. So I am honoring her, and I'm honoring the Turtle Clan, and I am honoring the generational trauma and the intergenerational trauma that has happened in her family and in her clan's family and all people's family. So please have it in your mind and in your heart. And if you can't do something, at least don't do anything negative. Even your thoughts matter, because that is how the energy of this area works, and that is how the culture works. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Any other announcements? I see Councillor Gordon, and I have your worship.
The dump's open on Saturdays now. Just in case you haven't missed that, now it's a county issue, but a lot of folks in Midland care about that. So for those of you that haven't been able to make it to the transfer station, it's now open on Saturdays again. Just a little shout out for those people cleaning out the garage for the spring.
Yeah, it'll be lined up to Highway 93. Mayor Strathern.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wanted to remind people that the Our Health series at MCC tomorrow night is dealing with mental health. I think we all probably need a bit of a primer on that after a year of COVID, and also addictions that can be associated with mental health. It's on It's on online, and it starts at 7:30 p.m. tomorrow evening. It's also on Rogers Cable, which is Channel 10 in Barrie and Orillia, Channel 53 in Midland and Collingwood, and Channel 65 in Borden and Alliston area. So it seems to be expanding out into the broader community, which is always a wonderful thing to see, based right here in Midland. I'd suggest people continue to look at the Our Health series. They have a wide range of really salient issues that impact the community and the health of the community. This one may be of particular interest for all of us, feeling a bit down from the COVID experience. So hopefully we'll be able to put that behind us at some point, but it'd be great, I think, worth watching tomorrow night.
Thank you, Worship. Any other announcements? Councillor Main, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like the news media picked up on this news release from the Simcoe County District School Board, but we should give a huge shout out to Jasmine Jenkinson, who is one of only 13 recipients from across from the University of Toronto, this national scholarship. So amazing accomplishment for a young Georgian Bay District, talented, artistic, academic, and certainly won't be the last we hear from Miss Jenkinson. So best of luck, and you make us all proud. Thank you.
Congratulations. That's fantastic. Thanks for bringing that up, Councillor Main. And if I could close with Midland, unfortunately, is losing probably one of its most popular residents. The Miss Midland is leaving port and moving to Tobermory. And I personally, and on behalf, if I could, on behalf of council, like to thank the Dubo family for 41 years of having that boat in Midland. Thank you so much. They brought so many people. I wouldn't want to guess how many people, but thank you so much to the Dubo family for all you've done. And the boat will definitely be missed. I hear it's getting a name change, and they have some new plans for it, but hopefully we'll see a new boat. We have some dock space open here at the town dock, and hopefully we'll get a new boat to come and dock at our town dock. We welcome you with open arms, and but thank you so much to the Dubos for all those 41 plus years. All right, next up, we'll move out of this committee of whole, and moved by Councillor Cunningham, second by Councillor Gordon, that the committee of whole rise and report. All those in favor? So carried. All right. Next up, we have, moved by Councillor Downer, second by Councillor Main, that the recommendations of the committee of whole for the meeting of May 5th, 2021 be adopted as resolutions of council. All those in favor? So carried. Thank you. Next up, we will have some notice of what motion we're given. And first up, we have Councillor Chesky's motion. Would you like to put this on the floor, Councillor Chesky?
No, I'm checking out.
Oh.
That was my first council dad joke. The first one, won't be the last. Okay, so my motion is short and sweet. That staff be directed to prepare a report outlining the pros and cons of backyard chickens, including what neighboring municipalities and similar sized municipalities are doing, with a report detailing the potential rollout options to be brought forward to a future meeting. And I do want to say for the media and for the public's sake that I'm not in favor or opposed to this, as much as I love farm fresh eggs, and I will support anybody in our town that gets some chickens. This isn't a personal thing. I don't want chickens in my backyard. I hear my neighbors cheering. So it's just something that has been brought to my attention, and there's a Facebook group, and there's a group in the community that would love to have this conversation. So I'm asking council tonight to get this on the table for a full conversation, and let's get. I don't have a good joke, so I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Chesky. So we need a seconder for Councillor Chesky's motion. Councillor McGinn. Any comments or questions with regards to this item? Councillor Gordon.
Right after Councillor Chesky was musing about putting this motion in, I threw that question out to my social media stream, and it went almost viral. And the commentary for I'll say 95% of it is all positive and support. Some of it's cautionary though. Can't just willy-nilly do this, because if it's not done right, you got people with roosters, you got people that don't clean properly, so then you have rat infestations and other predators. You got backyards that are basically 8 feet wide, stacked beside each other where there's chickens clucking away all the time. Like it doesn't necessarily, it's not just a blanket approval. Yeah, chickens, you know, chickens running around all over the street. But I definitely support, let's have a conversation about this. Shooting this down tonight would mean we're not open to the conversation. And I know it's tasking staff with yet another staff report, and God knows they have enough they owe us, but it's important to me. They're not going to have to do any deep dives. There's lots of stuff out there for them to bring back to us on how this could be implemented in town. Not necessarily everywhere. There have to be caveats, and you know, if you have such a small lot size, or if you rent, or I mean, there's, I don't know, but I'd love to have the conversation, and the only way to do that is to ask staff to come back with a report to us at some point. Now, there's a long line of reports that are due to us before this. So the nice thing is we're not going to have this conversation 2 months from now, probably. It may even end up being near the end of the term. But I think it's important that we raise this. There are enough people in our community that support this concept. And we'll also, I would imagine, as part of this, if it does move forward after the report, there'll be public consultation. This is one of those things we're going to want to hear from people. So all of that starts tonight with approving this and putting it into the hat for staff to come back at some point with some suggestions on how this could be done, you know, reasonably in our community. So long and short, I support this motion. Absolutely, Councillor Chesky, and I do look forward to that report at some point.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gordon. Councillor McGinn, and then I have Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you so much, Councillor Chesky, for bringing this forward. I'm really glad that you didn't chicken out, and that we're not going to be roasting wings tonight over this. So there's another guide council joke. So I do support this 100%. Prior to being elected, I was like for a little while involved in the backyard urban chicken group, BOC. We tried, okay, we tried to make something that sounded cool, but so I do. So I want to give kudos to Bruce and Pat, because that's where it stemmed from, and thank them for that. There's a lot of research that is out about you know, the health benefits of fresh eggs if your chickens are well cared for. So yes, I agree that it's something that needs a little bit of a look into. And I, being somebody who was born in Sudbury and spent a long time on Manitoulin Island, I understand that you have to care for your flock, just the same as if you have to care for a cat or for a dog. So I understand. I understand that it needs to go through the process. I personally, as a renter, would have to get permission for chickens. But if I owned, oh yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So thank you again for bringing this forward. I'm hoping it's not going to take a long time, because there's a lot of communities who have gone that route. There's actually a lot of city communities that have gone that route. There's actually some places where even if you have an apartment, that they have allowed for people safely on the roof to do this, and bees. So there's multiple ways that this can move forward, and I look forward to seeing how it can happen. And then I look forward to people being able to, you know, provide for themselves and provide holistically, and what will happen with the kids when they learn, you know, where the eggs come from. I think it will be great on a great many layers.
Thank you, Councillor McGinn. Next up, I have Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I feel like we all have to have something to crow about during our statements during this debate. I really do appreciate you bringing this forward. And the staff report first. My bigger concern, I mean, we see that Toronto has done this, and they've done it with the hen program, and you don't have to have roosters. Although when I get up in the morning, I can hear the rooster over on Brunel, which is delightful to me. And I do have fond memories of raising the evil beasties of chickens when I was younger. I'm not sure where the mental health part comes in, because they are nasty little beasts, but we'll, you know, if we go ahead, we'd probably get them. But my bigger concern is really the criteria of, do we have the staffing levels from a bylaw standpoint, and to be able to make sure that we don't have unfortunate concerns around what may not be a top of the list complaint should it come in. And so that would be just the concern that I would make sure that we add to the review is what level of staffing is required, what level of complaints and concerns do come in, and can we manage that?
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Any questions, any other comments with regards? Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I want to ensure that staff doesn't run afoul of council's direction and we get this exactly right. But would you consider geese? Thank you.
If you take them out a little late.
Any other questions or comments? I'll go with your worship and then Councillor Main, then I have a comment also. You're muted. Oh, there you go.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. When I was a younger person living in the country with some other biologists, we'd have thought, well, it'd be nice to have 50 meat birds and 50 layers. And so we brought the birds in and all the accoutrements that go with them. And what we found was that we went from a place where we'd never seen vermin, AKA rats, to the place was infested with them. So I have a concern around vermin, first of all. And we dealt with the problem, but it was probably not considered by the health and safety folks to be the best way to have done so. But that was many years ago. The other concern I would have is noise. As Councillor Cunningham said, some people find it pleasant to listen to the rooster crow in the morning, and other people would probably reach for the shotgun. I'm not sure, don't find it quite so pleasant. I would agree with the observation from Councillor Cunningham that there's likely going to be an increased enforcement component. Chicken runs out in the road, which came across the yellow line or whatever, and then we get into all sorts of complications because it didn't quite make it, or into the neighbor's yard, and there's back and forth. So that to me is an issue that I would like to see addressed. And as far as products go, farm fresh eggs and so on, I understand we have a farmer's market that runs year round, and people are selling farm fresh eggs and farm fresh poultry, and we have the farm fresh, I think it's called, group who are promoting local farm produce to the community. So it just begs the question for me whether or not it's worth staff time to be dealing with this pattern. My suspicion is probably not, although it's an interesting idea. And if you want to know where chickens come from, it's in the egg in your freezer as long, well, before it went to the freezer at least, and presumably the rooster was around to take care of the matter in the first place. So, which is, I know, an interesting lesson in biology, but yeah, I think you want to be a certain age or more before you get into that. I don't know.
You're a bit difficult to hear. Can you please speak up?
I beg your pardon?
We're having a hard time hearing you, I guess.
Oh,
So,
I beg your pardon.
there you go.
I think that basically it is fraught with issues. I think there is an enforcement issue that will come to play, and without putting too fine a point on it, as the CAO said, if chickens, why not geese, and if chickens, why not goats? So we get into that whole Pandora's box about what do we allow and what don't we allow, which I think broadens the conversation, and it's not just about chickens anymore. It's about how many dogs you can have, whether your cat should be on a leash, and just basically on whether wild geese should be fed or not fed, and so on. It just opens up a very large issue. It just, I get that people will say it's very narrow, but anyway, I'm not sure I want to support this, to be honest with you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Main?
Thank you. Yeah, I think Councillor Gordon mentioned it. So there's so many different ways to look at this, lot sizes, certain areas in town. How do you regulate this? The one point that I was going to make of concern is the zoonotic origin. There is concern about close proximity from humans and animals. Obviously, wet markets is a huge concern. We're in a global pandemic. So getting the consultation from the health, or perhaps even the Ontario Ministry of Rural Affairs, get their feedback on it. It looks like they've already developed some policies around, human and chicken cohabitation, about how to avoid it. So, yeah, I think urban farming is certainly an initiative that we certainly want to support. It's just, how do you roll it out? Is chickens the first thing you do? Or is it gardening and then you add chickens and edible plants and fruits and stuff like that? There's so many fun ideas that we want to do something. So I would support the notion of taking a look at this, whether it's feasible or not for a small urban municipality like Midland. At the end of the day, we might end up with a very small pilot program with probably under 100 people, applying, something kind of along those lines, and certainly would have a public consultation piece, a public meeting to have feedback from, hearing from people who support it and people who don't support it. So yeah, I see the hesitation on both sides, but I think it's worth continuing to explore the conversation. So thank you for all the different viewpoints on this.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Any other questions, comments? I'm gonna just in closing, I'm gonna ask for a recorded vote for one. And secondly, I am going to vote against this. The number one issue that council we deal with on a daily basis is neighbor disputes. And you want to increase this by 10 times, put a chicken in your neighbor's backyard when the dog's barking and the dog gets through the fence, and I just can't envision anything good coming of it. I appreciate what everyone's trying to do. I get it. But in my eyes, as your representative for town, I will not be supporting this at all. And I really would like to just vote it down today, save the town, save the staff some time. We have a lot of things going on, COVID-19, everything else going on. We're busy, and I just don't want to burden staff with another report. I'm going to vote no, but we'll open it up to the recorded vote if we could, Madam Deputy Clerk.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Ross. Council, you've heard the motion. When I call your name, please answer yes or no. Councillor Chesky.
Yes.
Councillor McGinn.
Yeah.
Councillor Prost.
Yes.
Councillor Cunningham.
Yes.
Councillor Downer.
No.
Councillor Main.
Yes.
Councillor Gordon.
Yep.
No.
Mayor Strathern.
No.
And Deputy Mayor Ross.
No.
The motion is carried 6-3.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Great. Final word, Councillor Chesky, you're on your motion.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll save the puns. I just wanted to make the comment that we had the same conversation around backyard fires 4 years ago, and I don't get a lot of complaints about backyard fires like we did right off the bat. So, and also a resident emailed me during this conversation and said, I said at a previous council meeting that you don't go to your neighbors for advice, you go for sugar. So I just like to thank that resident for watching so closely and for being involved in local Midland politics and
Sure.
for calling me my assistant.
And I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, and we'll leave the conversation, but the fire's on for 1 hour, maybe a night, chickens 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we'll see what comes of the report, and we'll have this conversation again down the road. And I'm always one to support the will of council, so we'll see what comes of it. Thank you. Councillor McGinn, final word?
Put the chicken on the fire.
Yeah, there. All right, next up, Councillor Main, you have a notice of motion. You'd like to put it on the floor, sir?
Thank you so much. The motion that I have is that staff be directed to review the town's existing tree and bench dedication program with the goal of establishing dedication opportunities on King Street, including the permanent benches, seasonal benches, and street trees, with a report detailing options to be brought forward at a future meeting. So just a quick little bit background context. The town has a very
we could, Councillor Main. I just need a seconder to get it on the floor. Then you, Councillor Chesky, Councillor Main, it's all yours.
Thank you. Just a little bit of context. The town of Midland has a very successful park tree program and a medium successful bench dedication program. So there is awesome opportunity in the downtown with so many awesome street trees that were being planted with little metal cages. We have some concrete benches. And so it's an opportunity to further memorialize great people in our community and family members, lost friends and family. And this is a cost neutral program. Other municipalities, street trees, dedication programs, the trees sometimes range between 600 all the way to 1,200. Benches often are a little bit more. So so some thoughts around that about how obviously you want to have it pay for itself, and any proceeds from the fund would then help go towards beautification efforts, street tree plantings, that type of thing. So I think there's an opportunity here, and we want to do something that's meaningful and not just plaster names all over the place, but do something very meaningful, because we know that the park tree dedication program is very meaningful. It means a lot to the people who dedicate trees. So there's an opportunity here, and hopefully we can do something meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Main, for bringing this forward. I think it's a great idea. You know, unfortunately, due to COVID, a lot of families haven't been able to mourn their lost one as much as they'd like, and this could be a great opportunity. So I appreciate you for bringing it forward. Councillor Cunningham, then I have your worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. One thing that I would add to this is something that has not seemed to be considered in the past is the maintenance program for this. And this came up at Seniors Council this past month, that many of our seniors are our greatest eyes on the street and on the park benches. And they have noticed that many of the memorials have not been maintained, and that can then turn from something that was a sweet gesture into something that feels insulting and hurtful. So if we could absolutely go forward with this, because I think it's something that people appreciate and care about, while also recognizing that there is a long-term cost to that. And let's perhaps spruce up what's there now as well, restore some of the plaques that have been broken, and look at these opportunities. It is something that is an established practice in the town, and it does matter, and it, I think, deserves that extra piece in the report to say, how can we roll this into the operations plan to have a time when we have that, or a place to report if something needs maintenance.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Your worship.
Well, I support the notion, but I'm just curious. We have an existing dedication program, and it sort of, for me, begs the question, and Councillor Main has spoken to it somewhat, and as Councillor Cunningham, but does this warrant, do we really need a staff report to deal with the issues, or we just need to make clear what we'd like to see happen with the existing program? So if the maintenance is lacking, then we should probably pick up on and deal with that. And if there are dedication opportunities, and maybe just a public program to make sure that people are aware that those opportunities are there. If the existing program is inadequate and we think we need a staff report, I get that, but I'm wondering whether we can deal with this in a different manner. I mean, if it's the will of council, I won't vote against it, but I do believe that maybe just making recommendations to staff in terms of where we're seeing deficiencies might be sufficient. I don't know, Councillor Main, do you think that's appropriate, or do you want to follow through with the
Councillor Main, go for it.
If I may, the initial motion I drafted, putting it through the clerk's department for their feedback, they added the word direct staff to put forward a staff report. I think because there's so many different variables to look at, and street tree dedication program doesn't appear to be a thing. There doesn't appear to be many municipalities that do urban street tree dedication. So that's why I think this is a unique thing that perhaps warrants some further attention. And to Councillor Cunningham's point, you pay once up front, and the town is now responsible for this asset for the entire life of it, these beautiful plaques or whatever, which fade or rust or whatever. So I think that's why I think staff are suggesting for a little bit further background information.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Any other questions or comments with regards to this item? All those in favor? Oh, I apologize. 1 second. Councillor Gordon had his card up and I missed it.
Sorry, just my brain was turning around with opportunities on this. I mean, the one-to-one type dedication that's, you know, $1,000 or whatever to sponsor something. If that is causing, you know, maybe that's why people aren't doing it. It's just a lot of dough. Maybe we could look at something a bit more creative, maybe something a little more modern, where, you know, a tree could have, or a bench could have a QR code, right? Which is that little funny barcode thing you scan with your phone's camera. And, you know, a page could be loaded up that could have people sponsor and memorialize people. And there could be any number of people associated with that bench or tree. And there could be a photo of them, a little story about their life. This could be some kind of like a digital thing almost. I mean, not really an NFT. I know Councillor Chesky and I have talked about these, but there could be creative ways we could make this accessible and inexpensive, and maybe more inclusive. If we were to try something, I don't know that it's been tried anywhere, but I'm just thinking of a little plaque that's got Lexan over it. So, you know, if somebody scrapes the bad word into it, we just put a new piece of Lexan. It's not a big deal, but it has the QR code behind it. And anyone who's interested, just as anyone would be interested to sit and look at the little tiny name etched on something, could just with their phone, take a picture of that. It would open up the webpage that has the information about the sponsor for that tree and things that they care about, maybe a place to donate to the Heart and Stroke Foundation. I mean, any number of things could be done with this, and it could be done, you know, with relatively low tech solution. What I'm talking about is not super complicated. And maybe we get a higher uptake and make things more engaging where people actually go on walks, almost like a virtual, you know, treasure hunt, or if you will, where the idea is to go around and scan these different assets and find little nuggets. And I mean, I'm making this up as I go here, but I see opportunities.
I think you're onto something.
I'd love to see some creative juices flowing from our staff on how we could maybe modernize this a bit.
I appreciate your comments. I think it's a great idea. I want my code when I'm passed, and I'd love other people to be able, and I think it might be even, there's some huge opportunities. Maybe the conversation could even go further to talk to our Heritage Committee or our museum and have some of our founding fathers included. So when you go through on that walk, you can scan, oh, Mr. Playfair founded a town, you know, that type of thing. So I think you're onto something. I would highly suggest that maybe work with Councillor Main and pass him the ideas, and we can do something together. But I don't see it being a bad idea. No idea ever it is, but I think this is great. So thanks for sharing, Councillor Gordon. And Councillor McGinn?
I think this is absolutely fantastic. Deputy Mayor, you touched on a bunch of points that I all of a sudden started writing down. I think this is amazing that it's come from the original motion into us talking about these fantastic ideas. Geocaching, it could include that. Now, the reason why I say geocaching, thank you, Councillor Chesky, is because it could become something that can also tie into Cultural Alliance. It can also tie into tourism. This is something that could become far more holistic and encompassing. So everybody here, I love it when we start having conversations like this, and it fuels me. So I think this is going somewhere, and I'm supporting what I'm hearing. And I'm pretty darn sure after this, I'm going to write, and I'm going to just support what everybody is saying. Let's see what we can do with this. I think it can include memorializing. I think it can include, you know, heritage and history and the youth. It can include culture. It can include North Simcoe. It can become something that is beyond what it is right now. And then it can also be financially sustainable. I think this is incredible. Thank you for giving me something to be passionate about.
And I believe the report covers what we're talking about, because even in the motion it says Street Chief will report detailing options to be brought forward to council at a future meeting. So I think we're set. So thank you, Councillor Cunningham.
We're all doing it. Thank you so much to everybody.
Councillor Cunningham, last word, and we'll call a vote. I think we're heading somewhere.
I like the idea of the report. I like this, what I'd like to refer to as the separate idea of the QR code. And if you look at culturalliance.ca, you will find that we're developing something called a culture asset map, which may or may not include these QR codes as you mentioned, because we are including not just physical assets and places, right, placards and plaques, but also the stories of the region. So I would hate to see a separate independent treasure hunt being established when we really need the entire community and everybody on council looking at culturalliance.ca, going to the cultural asset map page and starting to drop pins, put pins on the GIS fully up-to-date, app-ready database that is being created right now. So if you did miss the how to drop a pin presentation that I mentioned last time at council, it is recorded, it is there. And if I may just suggest that we honor that organization and the fact that that database will have staff involved to keep it up to date, which is very important. So I think it is a great place when we're actually looking at heritage and historical peoples, that we look to the group that is responsible for that and make sure that we share those ideas with them. And absolutely, any ideas that come from here that could fill in there would be well received. The energy and enthusiasm, and even the desire to work on subcommittees. If you're watching this and thinking, I should be participating, that is a possibility there. There's a lot of very cool stuff going into that culture asset map, and the more energy we have behind it, the better. So you will be able to take your phone walking down a path and have the pin pop up and let you know what you're passing by, where you can click and go into the full story and more pictures. It is an exciting project, and you just kind of rebuilt it during the last 10 minutes.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Last words, Councillor Main, on your motion. We're all ready to vote.
No, I think the motion captures the intent, and I know if we put it out to the public, I know there's many people that would hopefully take the town up on the offer for dedication. Thank you.
For sure. Thank you. Thank you very much for bringing forward. All those in favor? So carried. Thank you so much. Councillor Main, you have one last motion, and I'll let you bring it to the floor and we'll ask for a seconder.
Thank you. Let me just pull up the motion here. Apologize. Oh, here it is. That staff be directed to review the timing and technology of the traffic signals installed on King Street from Bayshore to Yonge to balance the needs of pedestrians and vehicles with the goal of increasing accessibility, pedestrian safety, and the ease of use, with the report detailing options to be brought forward to a future meeting.
I need a seconder if I could. Councillor Prost. Any questions or comments with regards? It's pretty straightforward, I think. Councillor Main, please.
Well, just a little bit of background and context. We did have a committee to deal with some of the issues, more design issues, less technical review. And so staff have been working with the CC Tatham consulting engineers who've done a wonderful job. Arnott Construction have installed things, and they're still finishing up with some great greenery. Just as soon as the street opened up last fall, we were already starting to get feedback, a little bit of confusion from the public, from drivers, from pedestrians over the pedestrian signals. And so it's just je ne sais quoi, right? It's hard to put your finger on what is exactly how we can make it better, the flow, especially for pedestrians, as the whole intention of King Street is supposed to be a very pedestrian friendly district. And so the thought was maybe we can tweak the programming, or maybe there's even technology that we could look at just to make it more pedestrian friendly, more accessible. And so we put $14 million into this huge project, so it's worth spending a little bit more to just fine tune the details, but also to signal to the community that we've received the feedback that there's just a little bit of tweak, fine tuning that can be done. And so we'd love to have the conversation with staff about what are the different options that we could look at. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Main. Councillor Gordon, and then Mayor Strathern.
I'd love to see the traffic signals for a block or two red for like a month, and just close it down to vehicle traffic. Barry's doing this again. Got the brand new street. We're gonna have all these patios. This is assuming the plague actually lets up and allows us to gather out there. But just close it down, let people wander around and enjoy it. The bit of parking we're gonna give up for that month or two, compared to the number of people that can gather in the little pop-up shops and the whatever will happen down there, might be worth exploring. So, I mean, I agree that some of the traffic light timing is infuriating. I've only driven it a few times, but it is a head scratcher, especially when you have no hair. But I've also been inspired by what I'm seeing other communities with new main streets doing, where this might be a time to also, I know it's kind of a tandem thing, but I don't know if staff's even thinking about this yet, but maybe consider shutting her down for a month in the summertime, assuming things come back to semi-normalcy. So I totally support this. I think it's great, but I'd also like to start, again, thinking a little bit out of the box. What can we do more to showcase our amazing new downtown? And maybe just making the lights all red for a month or two might help.
Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Sounds like another motion somewhere down the road, maybe from the BIA. I'm sure Councillor Main heard you and he'll bring that back for them. Mayor Strathern.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd support this motion. I have watched any number of people jaywalking right at the intersection. Out of frustration, they just sort of cut across, and I've seen a couple of them come really close to being picked up by paramedics as a consequence of their action. So what's interesting is that these light systems have a huge number of features built into them. And I've had people say to me, well, I'm not used to pushing a button to cross the street. And I'm sitting there going, well, I don't know where you're from, but the whole time I've gone up to an intersection, you push a button, it changes, presumably gets you. But the point is that people don't understand the power of those new lights that are in there. For example, you can get an app now as a person who has mobility challenge from vision or just locomotory issues or whatever. And that app will signal the light in your favor. And that's not, I don't think, well known. And so I think the councillor's motion will get it in probably in fairly short order in front of council, and we can have the conversation for those listening, but also I think promote the attributes of these things. I know project engineer for the town is found a wealth of knowledge on this. It's trying to get that knowledge out there. So I wholeheartedly support this. I think it'll come forward fairly quickly.
Thank you very much. Any questions, other questions or comments? Last word, Councillor Main.
Thank you. Yeah, so there's 5 signalized intersections. 2 of them are new. So Dominion and Elizabeth, that's new. So we're, people got used to the 4-way stop, and now they're getting used to the intersection. Young and Bayshore have different timing, and Hugel as well. If you use Bayshore, that's a perfect example of very responsive. You press the button, you can cross from the chamber to the bowling alley, or cross Bayshore to the town dock in very quick response. The other ones, there's a bit of a delay. And so waiting to that next cycle creates that confusion. So that's why I think looking at the timing and maybe even looking at the tech would be worthwhile. So thank you again. Thanks everyone for your comments on this.
Thank you very much, Councillor May, for bringing this forward. All those in favor? So carried. Thank you so much. That concludes all the notice of motion. Now we have next up we have moved by Councillor Chesky, second by Councillor Post, that the bylaw 2021-21 being a bylaw to adopt the proceedings of the regular council meeting with closed session held May 5th, 2021 be passed and enacted. All those in favor? So carried. And before we adjourn this meeting, I wanted to thank council for their patience with me chairing my first meeting in quite a while. And thank you. And thank you, staff and Sherry. Great job, Deputy Clerk. Thank you. Did a wonderful job. So we'll close this meeting up. We'll close this meeting out. Moved by Councillor Gordon, second by Councillor Cunningham, that this regular meeting of council with closed sessions adjourn at 9:10 p.m. All those in favor? Thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Be safe.